Yeah.
Wow.
I'm standing on a nice step because I keep making things that are so big you can't see me. So I thought, well, we'll get a step. And also, if Dennis needs telling off, I like to be on eye level with him.
Yeah, all right then.
So he takes me seriously.
So we're starting off with, I think, a hand-tied bouquet, this one, is it?
Yeah. So I'm doing the most important job with a hand tied, is get your tie ready before you start. Because at the end you can try and cut it, hold it in your mouth, and that's very difficult. So I've made myself a frame. So if you struggle with hand tights to keep the shape, or you're going to make it out of soft flowers, a frame base is always really good because it will hold your flowers in shape. You need to use less foliage and flowers to fill it, and also if it's something that they're going to carry, for instance a wedding bouquet, or you're going to present it, when they put it up and down it protects the flowers don't get damaged. So I've just made that out of some paper covered wires, and all I did was tape a bunch of paper covered wires to form that little handle, and then bent them down all the way round, and then once I'd done that I started to cross them over and twist them, and it starts to form that mesh, and you just keep going round. Just a very quick way to show you, but you keep going round, and eventually round and round and round you come to that. You can always add in an extra wire. It's going to be mainly covered by your flowers, so it doesn't really matter about your joins and things. And then all I've done on the outside is woven it with some beaded wire and some ribbon to just create that lovely little frilly edge. Now I'm going to start my bouquet. So quite short flowers, I'm just going to pass them through the frame, and you'll see already if you were making a hand tied normally you would have to put loads of foliage in. We'd already be packing wedges of foliage in there to hold it all in place, but because the frame is doing the work for me I don't need to do that. So I'm going to make a lovely centre of these garden roses from Carol's garden. Carol supplied the flowers today. It's all British grown, and it was a bit of a lucky dip because I didn't know what we were going to get. And so for me that's been lovely because I've just come along and looked at what we've got and seen what I'd like to make with it instead of doing lots and lots of planning. So you can see I'm forming a centre there with the roses, and the frame is holding it all in place and keeping space between each flower.
Just went and got a few little leaflets for Carol's garden.
Oh so. Yeah. And so I'm just adding in and building up the design, and as I say, using the frame. And you'll find you do need to use less flower and less foliage to make this sort of design. And these very soft things, like the feverfew and the sweet peas, will be supported.
Now you are a florist by trade. You've been a florist since you were knee-height to a grasshopper.
Yeah.
And for the last sort of few years of your career you've been involved with Country Baskets. Tell us a little bit about Country Baskets.
Well, I work for Country Baskets as Creative Development Manager, and my job is to work with our trade customers. So because I'm a florist by trade, I had a shop for 22 years, my main job is to work with the trade element of our business. So I chat to all the trade and find out what they need, what they like, what products they like, how the trade's going for them, what we can do to help. So that's what I do as part of Country Baskets, and that involves some product development and some images and all sorts. But we also supply the public, so we have a two-tier pricing, and we sell all sorts of things. So we sell all the floristry basics, we sell some inspirational sundries, we do outdoor living, silk flowers is a major part of our business, homeware, so it's a massive business that sells all the lovely things, all the extras you want for your home. And today all of the sundries in the demonstrations are sponsored by Country Baskets, and we've got our lovely ladies from Manchester store over here selling today, but also if you want any information on memberships or location of stores, they can help you. So I'm just adding in more materials as I go. I'm building up this lovely posy design.
Now this is actually a carnation, isn't it? It's from the dianthus family, although it looks nothing like a dianthus. It's more like a Sweet William, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, you can sort of tell by the leaves and the structure of the stem, because you can see the nodes in the stem.
Now that particular variety I know, it's called Green Trick, and it just gives you that lovely texture on the bouquet, doesn't it?
And the pops of green just bring out the colours and everything else, I think. So I'm going to add in some sweet pea.
Now sweet pea isn't a great laster, is it? It only lasts for a few days usually.
No, this is English sweet pea, so it hasn't had the floral journey that sometimes they do, so you'll get it quicker. It'll come through to you quicker, so you get more of the life. But really, 3 or 4 days for a sweet pea is what you would expect. And also they only need a tiny bit of water. A lot of people make the mistake of putting them in very deep water, but actually they like very shallow water and just keep topping it up.
They're a bit like a gerber, aren't they? They've got very hairy stems, and with those hairs they transport the water up the side of the stem as well as through the centre of it. So you're right, if you put them in too much water they end up drowning, and they start what we call sweating, don't they? And the flower just really suffers from it.
Yeah. But it's always the same. When it's a softer flower, you feel like you want to give it more, and actually they usually want less. Just more, pay more attention to keeping it topped up, but not more. Quite often with the gerber, people will like fill the vase up to the neck, and that's like the worst thing you can do, because they can see it
or the gerbers start hanging in the vase. Yeah. Hang on, I'm drowning. All my gerbers are going down. I better give them some more water.
Yeah. The water's not deep enough, obviously.
So we tend to wire them and put the wire up the bottom of the stem so they stand up like little tin soldiers.
Yeah.
So they don't actually, get the chance to collapse.
So we've got a lovely collar of sweet pea, which would be very difficult to put into a normal hand tie, because the stems are so soft, they would just break. And I'm going to add in a tiny bit of this achillea just for a pop of colour. And again, you can see I can feed it into the design. But with a normal hand tied, you can only add it in around the outside. So as you build it, it's very difficult to feed something into the middle, but I can actually evaluate my design and add my colour where I need it because of the frame. So all the time I just evaluate, so I'm looking at the shape and the colour spread from the top, I'm looking at the profile of it, keeping it within that frame so it's protected. I'm just going to finish it off. I've got some lovely Helleborus leaves to sit underneath. Now they'll form 2 purposes really. They'll hide some of my mechanics, but they'll also add strength underneath for when I tie it. And they'll protect those soft stems of the sweet pea, so when I pull the tie it won't cut the stems. And I'm going to finish it with a few plumps of tulle, which I've just wired from a roll of tulle. Sorry, there we go. So I've just made a few bunches of tulle, cut off about ½ metre, bunched it up on a bit of wire, and that'll give me a lovely collar. And I'm just literally placing them in underneath the hand tie. So a lovely summery frilly design. I knew I had one more hiding under there. Oh, Dennis, I've got in a tangle.
We haven't seen tulle used like on a grand scale since the 90s. Do you remember when we had it in every wedding? They wanted big clouds of tulle.
All these pretty bits though are coming back into fashion, aren't they? These extras, frills, and I think it does add extra texture, especially with the sweet pea. Right, and I'm just going to tie it with my tie twine.
The fashions, in clothing and all sorts, just keep going round and coming back into fashion again. And I think with flowers, it's the same thing happens, doesn't it?
Well, and I think the interesting thing, because I've moved on a little bit from just being a florist and working more in the wholesale environment, the amount of work that goes into the trends every year to see what's coming up, the colours, styles, textures that we actually do to make sure we're hitting the mark with everybody else, really is. But you don't realise that as just a florist or a flower arranger. You don't realise the amount of background work that comes in to make sure we tie in with the way everything else is moving. And I found that fascinating. I've learned so much. Right, so I've tied that one. And just cut to length. Pop it in the vase. Oh, missed one. There we go. So that's a lovely summery bouquet. Really easy way to make a hand tied and makes it much more versatile because it's protected by that frame.
Thank you very much. I think it's nice to see the bouquet lying on its side in a vase as well. Sometimes people always feel the need to put everything in dead straight. It's got to be regimented. People buy tulips because they want them to stand up like little tin soldiers in a vase. And if you ask a florist, what would you like your tulips to do? We want them all to flop around, don't we? Because they just have so much more texture and fun rather than seeing them sort of forced to stand up.
Right, so I'm going to do something a bit bigger now.
I love that container. Is this just a chunk of wood?
No, it's a resin container, so it holds water. It's from our Masai range, so we do lots of different containers, sizes, candle holders, that sort of thing in this range. I love this one. I love the shape because it lends itself to flowers. I'm going to do something completely different. So this is going back to the old way of arranging flowers, really, through a chicken wire or something like that. So I've made a frame just out of whitewashed wood. I've fixed it with cable ties, which is the real solution for florists now, I think. I've just left a couple to show so you can see. And then I've covered over the cable ties with this lovely lace ribbon, really quick. I'm going to pop that on the top of there, and that will hold my shape, my flowers, as we would have done with chicken wire. So I can just work through the frame and arrange my flowers that way, which gives me a lot more freedom. Beautiful asparagus. So I'm going to fill it first. So I'm going to put some foliages through. Just to fill and cover the frame. And because the frame is part of the design, you don't have to keep going until you can see nothing of it. It becomes part of the design. So you build your design, and as you like the finished look, that's it. Spread that out. There we are. So a few fillers in there to start me off.
Quite often people buy a big vase because they like the shape of the vase, but to fill it with flowers would cost you a small fortune, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
And I think to go for something like that and put the framework on, as you say, you actually need a lot less material because the flowers are kept in place by the little frame that you've put on it.
That's right, and also you can replace the flower. If one flower goes over, then you can replace it with something else without having to take apart the whole design. So actually it's got quite a good longevity. Lovely, lovely larkspur.
I think we're really spoiled in the summer for all the lovely flowers that we can work with, because usually throughout the winter months we're stuck with chrysanthemums and carnations, aren't we? And the lilies and the astro, and that's about it.
It is so nice to see like the resurrection of the British flower, I think, because when I started out with my floristry business a long time ago, we could go and fetch flowers from the wholesale, from the growers. We would go to our local growers, and I had a local grower that did all my chrysanthemums and pot mums and things like that, and then we would go to other growers and pick up. We had a local grower that did scabious, and I've never found as good as scabious. since. Well, they're just coming back through now, but it was lovely. And then all of that sort of died out and got taken over. And it's so nice to see it all coming back in again now and being available to use, because with the seasonal flowers, there's something in a pleasure, particularly for a florist, and only being able to use that flower for a short time of the year, because we've got so used to getting anything we want any time of the year, it almost becomes a bit boring.
But I think customers kind of, don't question where flowers come from anymore these days, do they?
No.
The bride sees a lovely picture in a magazine or on Interest or Pinterest or whatever, Instagram, and then she goes, right, I'm getting married and I'd like peonies in my bouquet. Great. What's the wedding date? Oh, it's the 13th of January. Okay, how many peonies can you see growing in your garden at that time of year? Well, none. So where do you expect me to get the peonies from? So you can get them, as you say, Tracy, but they look nothing like a peony, do they?
No, and
they're
it's
so
very
small,
risky,
they don't open, you have to remortgage the house to get them in. And
for the florist, it's very risky because you do not know what you're going to get and whether they're going to be good enough to use. So.
Well, that's it. So stick to the season, if you want seasonal flowers, get married at the time of year that the flower is around, and you're guaranteed to have a much higher success rate.
And it's a pleasure waiting for something to come into season and thinking, oh, they're nearly here. Like, I love dahlias, which is a very old-fashioned flower, but I do love dahlias. I can't wait for them to come in because of the colour and the texture. And it's a bit of a pleasure, really, that you don't get them all year. Right, so I'm building on this arrangement. You can see how big it is. It's just into that frame. The only thing holding it and keeping this in place is the frame. Actually, I've just put some papaver into there, and one of them is actually opening. I put it in for the seed head, really, but one of them is actually just opening. You can see there.
What did you call them? Papaver?
Papaver. What do you call them? Dennis is going.
Oh, that's
poppy heads.
Chuckle. Yeah, poppy heads. No. Papaver is the Latin name.
Yeah.
Papaver. Me being Dutch, in Holland we say papaver.
Do you?
Yeah. So you say papaver, we say papaver.
I often work up in Leeds with my job, and because of my West Country accent, I'm always being pulled on my accent.
We were talking about Egypt in the shop last week, and I said, what's the name of that woman, the one with the Bob style haircut, the pharaoh thing? Cleopatra. And they said, Cleopatra? And I said, yeah. And they said, Cleopatra. And I said, in Holland we say Cleopatra, so I just translated it into what I thought it sounded like in English, Cleopatra.
I think your Dutch accent is very mild now, though. You've been here a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, 25 years this year. That's not India.
Oh, I missed. Right, so I'm just finishing off now with this Ami. But you can see the impact of that arrangement with these materials. And as the roses go, you could take them out, evolve the arrangement, reuse the frame.
These are really long ones. Nice
I'm just going to put a long one in just to come up with that liatris, so we're bringing the height up. And then I'm going to finish off. I've made myself, this is why I need the step, you see. I've made myself some picks with this driftwood. So I've taken this from a driftwood garland, so it's already pierced, and I've threaded them onto a 1.8 wire. And just bent it over, and I've just done that to bring all of the textures and link the whole thing in, because we've got the container with the distressed wood effect, the whitewash wood, so I just wanted to bring a little bit of wood into my actual flower design. So I'm just popping them in. Just placing them through the design. Again, very simple, reusable, just a finishing touch. There we go.
Lovely, thank you. I quite like this stage that we've inherited overnight.
Yeah.
It's all in preparation for Ladies' Day tomorrow, but it works well because we've actually got somewhere to put the arrangements today.
I'm not sure why you're allowed to walk down there though, because I've been told I'm not allowed.
Oh, really? Oh.
Dennis never sticks to any
Who says
rules.
that? I go where no others go before, that's it.
Right, so I'm going to make an arrangement in this lovely trough. I'll just sort my flowers out first.
So this is one of the new designs as well from Country Baskets, is it?
Yes, it is. It's made of natural wood. We do lots of different shapes. I love this one because I've been watching recently. Florists and flower arrangers have been trying to construct this kind of hovering container themselves, and this is really lovely because it's sturdy, it's balanced. Because I don't know about you, but whenever I try and make my own container, the biggest problem is making sure it balances and it doesn't topple and is safe. So I do love these wood designs. Right. See what we've got. Trouble is, I've been spoilt for choice with all these flowers, so I over-select really.
More is good, they always say, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can never have enough of a good
More
thing.
is more, that's what I say.
If in doubt, don't leave it out.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to add in a little bit of artificial in this one, just for a different texture. So I've got some artificial bulrushes, and I love bulrushes. This is one of my favourites, but real ones, fresh ones or dried, are really hard work to use because they go to seed, don't they, and they spoil. So I do like to use the odd bit of artificial flower in with fresh, particularly when it's something that I wouldn't be able to use as a fresh flower. And I often do it when I quite often do it with weddings and things, because I will add in a hydrangea or a lily of the valley or something like that if it was really hot and I was worried that the fresh version wasn't going to last or the price was prohibitive. I would I would mix in with the fresh an artificial version. I always would tell the customer that's what I'm going to do and show them the options, but sometimes it's the best way around a solution when they want something particular. So I'm going to put the bulrush, and I've got some little plums as well that are going to go in there in a minute. So I'm going to build just a very parallel design. I looked at the container and I looked at all these gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous summer flowers we've got available, and I thought, right, I don't want to do anything too contrived. I'm going to do something very natural, as if it's growing from the trough almost. Dennis is tidying up for me.
Well, I'm laying them all out nicely so that you can just put your hand on them and grab them.
I've got a big studio now. I do floristry and design work, and I work with our photographer and all sorts. And it's always shall we say, a creative space. Because
So
there's always
basically
lots.
it's a mess, is it? Yeah, that's what you're saying.
I have to do a bit of planning and desk work these days, so I like to move from a practical job to a bit of desk work, and a practical job and a bit of desk work. So you'll find, because obviously I'm a florist by trade, so the creative bit is what I really want to do, and then I have to do everything else as well. So you'll find 2 or 3 projects. I've got several different areas. There's always 2 or 3 things going on, so I do a bit of my desk work and then go and fiddle with that. And then I do a bit of my desk work and then go and have a go at that. And it sort of keeps me going a bit. Yeah, so it's always a work in progress of some sort in my room.
I think a creative person's workspace is almost as creative as their mind, isn't it? It's just a mess. Everything's everywhere, and you walk in, but I always call it organised chaos. I know exactly where everything is, and if someone's been in my space and moved something, I'll go to pick it up and it's not there anymore. And I go, hang on, who's touched this? And this could be the most almighty pile of mess, but you know somewhere in there is that artificial plum that you've left there the week before. You know?
That's exactly the same as me. I'm like, don't touch that. I've just started that, and they're like,
Really?
Yeah, honestly, it's supposed to look like that.
I love how this whole design is just, it floats on that truck with the two little metal rods, and it just creates that extra bit of height.
Yeah, and there's just enough weight in the container to balance the height. So I'm just building it, I'm making it so that it's can be viewed all the way round and not one-sided. Now this is a type of limonium, type of status, which I didn't realise till Carol told me, because Carol's gardener supplied all our fresh flower today, and she came and gave me a run through, because to be fair, there's lots of beautiful things in here, but I'm not quite sure what varieties they are. And this is a status, but I wouldn't have recognised it as such.
And the moss you've put at the bottom, which is this, the reindeer moss?
That's reindeer moss, yeah. I like to cover my foam before I start with something like a moss, because I like to, when I get to the point where I think I've put enough in to the design, I like to stop. I don't like to be poking things in through my lovely flowers, because I might damage something. So I always put a very basic covering on my foam in the beginning, so that I can work through that and evolve the design without having to worry about filling it and covering it all up afterwards. So I'm going to bring in a big pop of colour now.
Now Julie was using these earlier on, and she was telling us that it's actually the flower of a marrow. Do you know, yesterday we couldn't think of what they were, and it's a particular type of marrow.
They're gorgeous, aren't they?
Yeah, lovely. They look like a Chinese lantern with those, with the
pods on. Yeah.
So I see you got some of your favourite dahlias there.
Yeah. Minus the earwigs. That's the only thing with dahlias, you often get an earwig creep out, don't you?
I love an earwig. That's hundreds of years of evolution there.
Yeah.
The little snappers on the back of their tail, what do they actually do with those? What do they actually kill? It's just there. When you see an earwig go, you go, there he goes, off to nowhere, doing nothing.
They're just for pinching us, those little pincers on the back, I think. Right, so you can see I'm adding that hot colour to balance all of this airy-fairy height, so it drags your eye right down and balances out all the other elements in the design. I'm using the buds as well, it's in lovely shape.
You going to put this one in?
Yeah. Dennis, my glamorous assistant. We were just trying to decide if he should wear the headdress or me.
Got lovely long hair to, wear it off in.
Yeah. The trouble is with my hair, once it's gone in, you can't get it back out anyway. And then again, I'm just going to put this little tiny bit of army at the bottom. Another texture. Pulling it down through. So you can see I've kept it quite light and airy at the top and brought in some texture at the bottom. And then I'm going to put these plums in around the bottom as well. Again, a little bit of recession, giving it a little bit of weight again at the bottom.
And I think the colour of the plums really works with the colours that you've selected in the flowers. And the fact that they're plastic is neither here nor there now, is it?
They've got that lovely flocked texture on them, so it's difficult to know until you get up close. And real fruit is very difficult to use, isn't it? Because it either affects the flowers or it evolves, if you like, and ruins the design. So there we are.
Lovely, thank you very much.